In the spring of 1810, the ornithologist Alexander Wilson bought a horse in Lexington, Kentucky, and rode it to Nashville, Tennessee. This may not have been as easy as it sounds. First, he had to sell several subscriptions to his bird illustrations, payable up front in part. And then along the way, he had to dismount at the appearance of every unusual avian for observation and sketching. Once in Nashville, he did manage to discover for science two species of small greenish singing forest birds, the Tennessee warbler and the Nashville warbler. They were named for obvious reasons. Neither of those species, however, nest in the state of Tennessee. They were migrating through to points far to the north as Wilson himself was moving south. That is what we call an intersection. On May 4th, 1810, Wilson continued on from Nashville down the Natchez Trace towards, ultimately, New Orleans. Whether on the same horse, we do not know. Those put-upon beings were so expendable in those days. Wilson himself had only 3 years left on his own exhausted bones, although we don't know that at this time. In October of the previous year, the explorer Meriwether Lewis, of Lewis and Clark fame, had died via gunshots under mysterious circumstances at a place called Grinder's Stand, about 3 days' ride out of Nashville on the Natchez Trace. Lewis was a friend. He and Wilson had exchanged bird specimens and drawings. Wilson stopped off at the Grinder's Stand, which was really a trail-side roadhouse with a couple of attached cabins, to check into the story of what had happened. There was considerable mystery as to the circumstances of Lewis's death. Some speculation pointed to suicide because of unpaid debts due to the government having reneged on paying for one of his expeditions. But that didn't sound like the dauntless explorer Wilson knew. Robbery-murder was surely the more likely explanation. He had been shot twice, once in the leg and once in the head, which is an odd way to commit suicide. Maybe the leg shot was accidental, and then the head shot was self-inflicted to put himself out of his misery. To add to the mystery, the roadhouse proprietor, Mrs. Griner's stories seemed to conflict at various tellings. But without new information, Wilson, who was staying in the very cabin where his friend had died, had decided he would be moving on in the morning. His investigations had failed to add credence to either explanation for his friend's death. The right answer is that it was neither. In the evening, Wilson had stepped out the door of his cabin when a measured voice came out of the half-light. If closely pressed, the bird will dive across the pond, rising and disappearing again with the silence and celerity of thought. Wilson was stunned. Was he being visited by a ghost? There was only one person with whom he had shared his drawing and description of the marsh rail, the bird in question. The drawing had not yet been published in his portfolio opus, American Ornithology. Who could possibly know of this? With considerable trepidation, Wilson allowed himself to whisper into the darkness.
Lewis?
Dr. Wilson, I presume. Lewis's reply presaged by 60 years his Nile-exploring cousin explorer.
Lewis? What the hell? And I have earned no doctorate.
Give it time. I have it on good authority that the Philadelphia Philosophical Society has its eye on your elevation to an even higher honor.
You must be real, since I have no knowledge of the society's dealings.
Yes, I'm real. I heard you were in town. Thanks for coming by.
Would you mind explaining yourself? Do you have something to do with the shot-up body buried out in the cemetery here under your name? Or have you crawled out of the grave to try to solve the mystery of your own murder? The President of the United States thinks you killed yourself halfway to having your debts forgiven if you could only have made it to the Capitol.
I'll tell you the whole story. We'll go to my place. It might be awkward if I was seen around here.
Oh, no kidding. I'm still not even sure you're real. I could be found shot in the leg and head myself.
Well, when was the last time you went off in the night with a ghost who had a real horse? That seemed good enough. Wilson gets his own horse, and they mount up. A female voice calls out, "Mr. Wilson, are you leaving us?"
It's all right, Mrs. Griner. I'm just going out to listen for owls. I'll be back tomorrow. I don't think she saw you, Lewis.
Wouldn't matter if she did. She's in on it. They mount up, and Lewis's horse seems to know which way to go through the darkness. Lewis begins to fill Wilson in. As you know, Wilson, about 6 months ago, I was on my way to D.C. to get Jefferson and Madison to follow through on covering the costs of the Red River expedition. I was staying in the cabin you were just in. I came back to my room. There's a guy in there, shot in the leg. He's bleeding bad. He's Spanish, but he speaks pretty good English. I say, I'm going for a doctor, but he stops me, says it's no use, says there's no time. Guy's name is Louis Alvarado. His many greats grandfather was Hernando de Soto's right-hand man. Back in 1540, Hernando and company came looking for gold. They run into a Choctaw Indian chief down in Alabama who worships the sun. He's built a big earthen temple down there so he can stand up on top of it and talk to the sun. He has tens of thousands of subjects who are well organized for prosperity all along the coast. De Soto is a threat to all this.
What does this have to do with faking your own death? And who the hell is in your coffin?
This chief is the real deal, but he has no weapons to fight off Hernando. The Spanish home gov has been on Hernando's neck about no gold, and the Spaniards have been rampaging and marauding, but the chief convinces him that he's got something much bigger than that. The chief claims he's over 3,000 years old. Hernando figures that's probably not true, but if it is, then it must be due to this fountain of youth thing he's been hearing about. Better check it out.
This Alvarado guy tells you all this while he's bleeding all over the floor of your cabin?
Correct.
How does Alvarado know all this? That's all 250 years ago.
Family lore. It was passed down from the original Alvarado, Hernando's top man. They must have discussed it at Thanksgiving in the family castle back in Castile. The guy's bleeding to death and won't let me go to the doctor. It's his story.
Okay.
So the chief makes a deal to show him the pool, as he calls it, the pool where you dunk yourself and you're good for the next 3,000 years.
What's with the 3,000 years?
The dunk only lasts 3,000 years. Then you got to go back to the pool for a renewal.
Why don't you just keep dunking every day?
I'll get to that. Plus, the pool moves. It's not that easy to find.
Right.
So where were we? The chief makes a deal with Hernando to show him the pool in return for stopping the marauding and also handing over some armor, horses, and fire sticks with which the chief can take over all the tribes. Of course, the chief suspects Hernando is going to kill him, and Hernando suspects there is no pool. But off they go for many days into the wilderness. When they get to the top of a ridge, the chief points down there. Hernando shackles the chief, and they go down for a look. There is no pool. The chief says the pool will appear at the appointed time, and he doesn't know when that is. That statement is in fact true. Hernando, of course, kills the chief and rounds up his guys to head off to Texas, where there is rumored to be gold. But as they leave, Alvarado glances at the remaining tribe members and sees the chief standing among them without his ceremonial feathers. Alvarado knows that the chief has ordered one of his braves to impersonate him, and Hernando has killed the wrong guy. Alvarado has believed in the existence of the pool the whole time and vows to come back one day without Hernando and find the pool. He is the navigator of the expedition and has been making a map using the ship's quadrant. When Alvarado gets back to Spain, he's going to raise his own expedition and come back and find the pool.
But you said there was no pool.
No, I said the chief said there will be a pool. You have to wait for it to appear.
Yeah, right. And when is that going to be?
I'll tell you. There's more to the story.
There is, and we haven't even got to the part about the dead guy in your grave, although I'm starting to suspect it's Lily Alvarado.
By this time, the dawn light was appearing, and they had gotten to a well-kept cabin in a little hollow down off the ridge from the trace.
Nice spot. So this is your real resting place?
Not if I have anything to say about it. This is the location of the pool 3,000 years ago.
Right.
Let's have ourselves some libation while I explain that.
Oh, hurry. Take your time. Where are we, by the way?
It's called She-Boss Road. Long story. I'll tell you about it sometime. I built the cabin over the winter. There's a pretty little cemetery out back. Nice place to end up if you have a choice sometime.
This Alvarado guy dies and you shoot him in the head and dress him up in your clothes.
No, we switch clothes and then he shoots himself in the head with my gun so nobody can recognize that it's not me.
Why does he do that again?
Alvarado knows he's going to die, and he doesn't want his secrets to die with him. He thinks his secrets can help the world. His family legend says, with water from the pool, you can bring old people back from the dead. Think of it, Wilson. You could bring extinct birds back. The last dodo died in the 1600s. We have the skin in the British Museum. We dunk it, and the species lives again. If, say, the passenger pigeon or the Carolina parakeet were to go extinct, you could bring them back.
Why do you pick two of the most common birds to speculate on?
To make a point. We can reverse mistakes. Think of what you could do, my friend. You yourself could live forever, to travel the whole world and paint every creature in it, the whole universe. Plus, you could bestow immortality on your friends, bring people back from the dead. The chief has his beloved parrot with him that is itself thousands of years old. He must have given the thing a quick dunk along with himself. It, too, is going to live forever.
For at least another 3,000 years.
True, but that gives us time to make things right and correct mistakes.
You've told Alvarado all this, and the family has passed it down through the generations.
Well, the chief tells Hernando all this, and Alvarado overhears it. Hernando himself never makes it back. goes down from a fever at a place called Lake Village, Arkansas.
Sounds like you might be stretching all this a bit.
Just want to make sure you understand the importance.
3,000-year immortality, I understand the importance.
Lewis can see that at last this was all finally getting to Wilson.
Where's the pool? I mean, where's the pool going to be?
Don't know exactly. I've got a map.
You've got a map? Where did you get a map?
Alvarado found it in the armor belonging to his ancestor in the closet in the castle back in Castile. That's why he showed up here. Wilson studies the map. It does seem like it could be a few hundred years old. This circle in the center is where we are now. That's where the pool was 3,000 years ago. The circle in the upper left is where the pool will soon appear.
Pool moves?
What I said before, the pool moves. The circle down here on the lower right is where the pool was 6,000 years ago, 3,000 years before it was here in the center. I've been doing a little research. The Choctaw believed that the world is flat and held up on the backs of turtles. The turtles' backs are big flat plates that fit together at the corners, but the fit is not exact sometimes, and some of the great ocean of immortality below leaks up through at the corners to form the pools up here on Earth. Since the turtles are slowly but constantly moving, the pool moves above them. But every 3,000 years, something happens to cause the corners to not quite mesh.
Choctaws all know about the pools?
No, only the chief knows that. All of them know about the turtles.
How do you know this one circle down here on the right is not the future pool?
Turtles always move west towards the setting sun.
How do you know which is west?
Lewis points at the upper circle.
Polaris, the North Star, always stays in the same place no matter where you are.
And allows you to know your latitude if you have a reasonably good ship's astronomer's quadrant, which De Soto did, or more precisely, Alvarado did. He was the navigator, which allows you to go west and east with pretty good accuracy. That's what the arrows are. They mark the right angle turns that you have to make if you can only go west-east or north-south. That's how you can navigate along the diagonal between the circles. This did not baffle Wilson, who is skilled at working with metal instruments of all kinds.
In order to know how far to go east-west, you need to determine longitude with a sextant.
That's right. And there were no good sextants until long after De Soto. So how do we know where we are as we move along the map? Two answers. As you may know, I am well trained in trigonometry and sextant. This guy Alvarado is no slouch either. I have mapped every river and valley between here and Oregon and back. Look right here at the center. Lewis points at the center of the map at the squiggly line with the tail. This map is not just a geometry lesson. It's a real map. I know the Duck River when I see it. And here we have the Tennessee River. And that's the Mississippi, near this upper left circle. The pool of 3,000-year life will appear soon somewhere to the northwest on this side of the Mississippi. It may already be there.
What's the other piece of evidence?
Two guys jumped Alvarado not 100 yards from here only 6 months ago. There's no reason for highway robbers to wait down here for a passing traveler. they would wait up on the trace. This is where the pool was 3,000 years ago. I think the chief posted some guys to watch the old pool site in case somebody got onto the system for locating the pools, which Alvarado did with his map. That means they thought Alvarado was on the right track.
Where are the two guys?
Alvarado winged at least one of them. I think they hightailed it.
So the chief now knows that we're here.
The chief can't do anything. He's in General Jackson's stockade down in Tallahassee. There's a big war coming versus the Brits, and it's not yet clear which side the Choctaws are going to be on. The chief may know there's trouble coming, or he may not. He can't do anything either way until he gets out, which may not be anytime soon.
How long does the pool last before the turtles move on?
Don't know. The chief may think he's got plenty of time.
3,000 years is a nice round number. Why should the turtles move at exactly a 3,000 years? We're talking about cosmic time here. What if the new pool shows up in 3,200 years or even 3,040 years? That means you might have decades or hundreds of years until the pool shows up, if you can find it.
Smart guy.
Lewis, you are a dear friend, but I've got 6 more portfolios of bird drawings to engrave and color in the next 3 years. If I can do that, that's good enough for me in terms of immortality. Thanks for the offer. I'm going for the surer thing. If there was some way to know exactly when the 3,000 years was up, I might go for it. Good luck to you.
On May 17th, Wilson was at William Dunbar's Natchez home on the Mississippi and picked up 5 new subscriptions for his future portfolios, and by August 1810, he was back in Philadelphia by way of New Orleans. In March of 1811, the Great Comet of 1811, C1811F1, was first detected by the French astronomer Flaugergue, and by October of that year became the brightest object ever seen in the night sky since ancient times. That night sky light spread quickly, even to Philadelphia and Nashville. Wilson saw the comet out his workshop window. On November 10th of 1811, Wilson knocked on the door of the cabin near the She-Boss stand on the Natchez Trace. Lewis answered the door. "You ready?"
Let's go.
In the very early morning of December 16th, 1811, Lewis and Wilson crouched beside a shimmering pool in what is now northwest Tennessee, and time seemed to stop as they looked through the sky blue surface into the seemingly lit from within waters. The pool was rapidly enlarging, fed from a powerful gushing up through a vent in the limestone. But before another second passed, the ground was pulled out from under them quicker than government funding for a second expedition to the Oregon Territory. Lewis was flung headlong into the pool even as the vent widened, and the pool water was reverse sucked back into the earth with a raging, inhaling sound like the god Poseidon changing his mind about the positioning of an ocean. Wilson was thrown over backwards into a stand of oscillated trilliums, and Lewis was left face down with a mouthful of Mississippi Delta mud. Both men jumped up and ran for open ground with tree trunks flying around like in the old-time game of pick-up sticks. They emerged from the forest as if running across the back of a stampeding herd of buffaloes. 2 days later, drowned like swamp rats, they made it to the river, which was still flowing the wrong way. Lewis was happy to hear later that once the sunken earthen bowl that became a lake had been filled, the river had returned to flowing towards its southward destination. The event described was, of course, the famous estimated 8.2 New Madrid earthquake. The location of the pristine pool was now subsumed under 10 feet of catfish-laden, cypress-stained, teeming cycle of life and death lake water. Some among the Chickasaw said the lake was formed because the Great Spirit buried a non-Chickasaw village whose chief had a deformed foot, his name translated into English as Reelfoot. And the chief had defied the father of a Chickasaw princess and seized her in marriage. Lewis and Wilson felt otherwise, that the explanation lay more in the comet-brightened night sky, which had triggered a response among the great flat-backed turtles beneath all creation. Neither explanation really matters as far as daily life in northwestern Tennessee now goes. Wilson died only 2 years later in Philadelphia of overwork and poverty, and Carolina parakeets and passenger pigeons, once the most common and gregarious of birds, are today extinct, and the entire Choctaw Nation is now in Oklahoma. And right now, it seems there is nothing that can be done about any of that. Maybe someday somebody will take another crack at it in 3,000 years or so. On a brighter note, you will find a surprisingly copious profusion of plots and visitors there too in the Sheboss Cemetery near the Natchez Trace today, bearing the given male and female names Meriwether and Meriwether, although, in all fairness, not the correct surname Lewis. It's as if a single family had propagated and prospered over many decades under the guidance of a single timeless vision.